Manas, we may have to request all participants to mute themselves. Maybe they can switch on their camera, but they can mute themselves.
Yeah, we have to.
Yes, would request the participants to kindly mute themselves. However, we have already put them as a mute. Kalyani Selvi. May I request the IT team to kindly mute everybody except three of the speakers, Professor Pradyumna Vyasa, Professor Manas, and Professor Vijay Kumar. Kindly mute everybody else. Thank you. So we are just 2 minutes away from 4 p.m. Professor Vyas, sir, would you suggest that we should wait for a couple of minutes or we should start exactly?
I think we can start introduction. Professor Vijay, is it okay that we start in a minute or so? You're on mute.
Professor Vijay, you are on mute.
Yes, I'm fine with anything.
Yeah.
All right. So we are just a minute away from 4 and we'll exactly start at 4. All right. So very good afternoon to one and all. Professor Vijay Kumar, Professor IIT Institute of Design, Chicago, Professor Manas Ranjan Mishra, Professor School of Design, University of Petroleum Energy Studies, Professor Pradyumna Vyas, Senior Advisor, Confederation of Indian Industry, President-elect of World Design Organization, Board Director of World Design Organization, and former Director of National Institute of Design, and all our esteemed participants, I welcome you all to the session of Design Talk series organized by Confederation of Indian Industry in collaboration with World Design Organization and University of Petroleum and Energy Studies. The series is conceptualized to sensitize the Indian stakeholders in the benefits of investing in design. This initiative will not only give boost to the existing design sector, but will also expand the thinking process on how to be more innovative and creative. Global stalwarts from different parts of the world will be invited to share their journey and experience with Indian audience to learn and gain insights from. I am Nitish Das, representing CI Design Team, will be happy to share that CI has been earnestly pursuing the strategy for promoting and leveraging design towards accelerating economic growth. CI has diligently worked to bolster and support the economy and society by demonstrating the vital role of design in making businesses more competitive and public services more effective. We are pleased to have World Design Organization's partnership for this initiative. WDO is an organization with global footprints advocating, promoting, and sharing knowledge of industrial design driven innovation that has the power to create a better world. Our supporting partner, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, UPES, is a top-ranked UGC-recognized private university. As per the National Institute of Ranking Framework 2023, the Ministry of Education, Government of India, UPS had been ranked 52 with a rank of 54 in engineering and a rank of 39 in management. In addition to this, the university has been ranked the #1 private university in academic reputation in India by the QS World University Rankings 2024 and is among the top 3% of universities in the world. With this, I would now like to introduce Professor Pradyumna Vyas, Senior Advisor, Confederation of Industry and President-elect of World Design Organization, who carries more than 40 years of experience, and he is a board member of the World Design Organization and the former director of National Institute of Design. May I now request Professor Pradyumna Vyas to give his welcome address, please. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Nitish. It's actually privilege and honor to have Professor Vijay Kumar with us. Professor Vijay Kumar does not need any introduction. He's a global personality in US and in India. Actually, first generation designer. I would say that he graduated in 1980 from National Institute of Design and afterwards went to US. We know each other for quite some time, much ahead of time. In fact, the design thinking, they started when people did not know in India, and they started in Godrej Innovation Center, a very unique thing for the industry. And when we met this time, we requested Professor that it would be good that generation know about your book, 101 Design Methods. It's popular everywhere. Most of the design schools in the world are following this design method on 101 Design Methods book, and I would strongly recommend all of you to get a copy, because that really gives the clear understanding of design thinking, which he will be talking today. And thank you so much, Professor Vijay Kumar, because I know you had to get up very, very early to address this audience. And this is the bright young designers from India. Actually, they are hungry to see that what all is happening globally. And you know India very well. You know the global scenario very well. You know where the future is really heading in the design education and design practice and design research. So we all are really looking forward to the interaction with the Manas and you're going to have in this session. And thank you once again. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Professor Pradyumna Vyas, to set the context. Now I would like to introduce our key speakers for today's session, Professor Vijay Kumar. Professor Vijay Kumar is a world-renowned expert on innovation and human-centered design with more than 40 years of professional and academic experience. He is a thought leader, advisor, consultant, and coach to large companies, small businesses, social organizations, universities, and governments. In the late 1980s, Vijay pioneered the early development in design-driven innovation and spearheaded its widespread growth through powerful structured methods and frameworks for conceiving reliable human-centered innovations and turning them into strategic plans for organizations. His research and consulting are focused on framing up emerging innovation opportunities in education, healthcare, communication, retail, emerging markets, government services, technology platforms, social innovations, and others. And academic, professional, and non-profit and government organizations around the world have been successfully using his innovation methods for more than 30 years. Now, I would like to introduce you to Professor Manas Ranjan Mishra. Professor Manas Ranjan Mishra, with over 20 years of expertise as a renowned designer and educator, He is a Master of Industrial Product Design from IIT Delhi and an electrical engineer from IGIT Sarang. Currently, he heads UPES School of Design's Industrial and Product Design Department and is the spoke for internationalization and industry outreach. With vast experience in design education and consultation, he has led workshops for major corporates like HCL, Infosys, and Mahindra & Mahindra. Pursuing his PhD from UPS, he is guided 190 plus Master of Design projects and secured 85 plus design patents. Professor Manas is a respected member of various design school board of studies across the country. Professor Manas Mishra academic journey spans various distinguished roles. He began as an assistant manager in design and development at KILCO Private Limited, followed by assistant professor positions at MS Ramaiah School of Advanced Studies and design faculty at Shishti School of Art, Design and Technology. Since July 2014, he has been a dedicated professor at UPES School of Design, enriching the design education landscape with his extensive experience and commitment. Now, I would like to invite Professor Manas Ranjan Mishra to initiate the conversation with Professor Vijay Kumar. Over to you, Professor Manas, please.
Thank you, Aniti sir. And who doesn't know the personalities sitting out here, Professor Vijay and Professor Pradyumna? Like, we have followed your footsteps. I read your books, saw your videos, and then we also learned as a student. And now I'm teaching to my students the same thing what I learned from you. And it's really my privilege that I'm getting the opportunity to interact with you on this public forum. And thanks, Nitish, for giving me this opportunity. And thanks a lot to CII. So, sir, without wasting any more time, let's start the conversation because many of our participants are actually waiting for the same. So, as we know, we all are from the design fraternity. If you are from communication, if you are from industrial design, and the few budding design students are also part of these conversations. So, let me ask you the very primitive questions what generally culminate in our mind that, in your opinion, can design be perceived as methods to create preferable futures? Because a lot of futures are on stake right now. So can you please put some light on this, sir?
Okay, okay, sure. Let me try. And thank you, Manas. And before getting into the question, I just want to thank Pradyumna and Nitish for the wonderful introduction and the kind words. Pradyumna, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, I met you back in India. So I was touring India for the last 2.5 months. Only 1 week ago, I returned back to Chicago. I'm still in my jet lag mode. So I'm very much awake right now, early in the morning here. So it's glad to be here with all of you, and let's have a good, wonderful conversation. So now to the question, Manas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the design, as it is understood today, will be a very powerful force which will determine our preferable future. But having said that, design used to be considered very differently for many years, as many of you know. About 30, 40 years ago, design was just form giving and giving aesthetic improvements to one thing, a product or a message, or craft-based design. So that perspective of design has changed over time in the last 35, 40 years. The design today has got much more meaning, and it is much more valuable to the world of innovation. So being so, it'll definitely definitely have a positive impact on the future that we are seeking. Especially the word that you use, preferable future, right? If the future is preferable, there is some underlying meaning to that about human beings. Any innovation, any design that you produce is ultimately going to be used by a person, a human being. So if that person prefers that product, then we have a great preferable future, right? So to me, design, the new definition is about humanizing the world, underlying the basic fundamental of design is humanizing the world. That's why in design, we start with understanding people and their needs and their aspirations and try to build innovations around that. If as long as that is the case, I'm pretty sure, I'm very confident that design will play a very impactful role in creating a preferable future, preferable for human beings.
Thank you, Saraji. Rightly said. Like initially, we used to say like product design or any design is like humanizing the technology, but it's very beautifully coined by you. Like humanizing the world is the future when we talk about design. So when you talk about the world, then why do certain nations traditionally perform better in how they perceive and integrate design in their lives? And however, the design can play a big role in design community platform for these young designers who are listening to you right now to develop their interest. So what is that actually the factor matters when some nation traditionally perform and some nation don't?
Yes, yeah, it's a natural phenomenon for nations to create a vision for the future, right? And many nations are very proactive in terms of taking innovation or design innovation at the forefront of their vision. Many nations have done that very, very proactively, right? I have gotten personal experience with many of the governments and nations trying to do that. So, for example, just to give you an illustration, Singapore as a nation in around 2004 was reconsidering its national mission by looking at the rapid developments South Korea and China were doing at that time. So they took upon as a challenge to make innovation as a policy at a national level. Right, that's where they brought in experts from all around the world to build innovation competency. That's an example of a proactive step a nation has taken to make innovation at the forefront. That sort of resulted in their initiatives and a lot of innovative ideas that they are implementing in the real world. And as you know, probably Singapore is one of the most innovative governments in the world today, right? So that's just one example. But thinking about the nations under all the factors that affect what a nation does, the primary factor to me is the government. Where the government of a nation is the one that impacts the entire mission and the entire progress of a nation. So, even if you look at our day-to-day life, yours and mine, we are impacted by a lot of organizations. For example, in my life, Google plays a big role. Right? I do Google searches and browsing and Google Maps and Google Drive and Google email, Gmail, all kinds of things.
Yeah, Google is half of our life now.
Right? Yeah, amazing, right? An organization playing a major influential role. But if you really think deeper about is there any other entity in the world that affects you more than Google or Apple? To me, if I really think about it, to me, it is the government. Every little action that I take, the government is there. It's not visible like Google. It is invisibly impacting your life. When you're commuting, when you're taking a bus ride, when you're driving a car, when you're buying a home, when you're doing a financial transaction, in every one of those daily life interactions, government plays a major role, right? So that's where we have to pay attention to what the government is doing. The government is trying to sort of serve us with policies and innovations, civic improvements. As designers, recognizing that government plays a very important role in our life as designers, we should be inspiring the government to serve us better, right? Government is serving us. Can we inspire or help government to serve us better? So that's where we as designers, you mentioned platform, community-based platforms. How do we create those kinds of platforms? Designers can play a big role in planning and strategically positioning public platforms that are about new communication frameworks that will help government implement those platforms in the real world. So to me, that is where we can play a role in helping the government serve our nation better.
Thank you, sir. Look, just now you mentioned again the government has to play a major role while contributing towards the society. So you gave the example of Singapore. And what do you comment on this? Whether the penetration of design into the society is better in Singapore or better in India? And this follows to my second question is like, if not, then what kind of steps or what can government do to keep India as the leader in design? Whether you can consider this industry 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, whatever it may be. So if it is led from the government, then what should be their steps? How we can be the leader in design?
Right. Yeah. I think India is already leading. Every time I visit India, I see the wonderful improvement and the wonderful development that is happening in India. Even last time when I was there a couple of months ago, the amount of energy and enthusiasm the young people have about taking India forward with new ideas and entrepreneurial, initiatives is amazing. And we look at it with envy, that kind of amazing enthusiasm and energy. So to me, India is already on the leading path for making innovation work. But compared to, as you mentioned, compared to other countries like Singapore or UAE, for example, let me give you another example. UAE, United Arab Emirates, again, is probably the most innovative government in the world today, in my opinion. The kind of things that they are doing to
any specific example?
Yes, I work with the United Arab Emirates as an advisor to help them with government innovations. For example, we help the UAE government. I advise them to set up a innovation center for government innovations, specifically looking at government innovations. It's called MBRCGI now, Mohammed bin Rashid Center for Government Innovations. If you Google it, and you'll see the amazing work that center is doing. But when it was being set up, now that is an initiative the UAE government has taken at the Prime Minister's office level to build a center for innovation for governments as an active initiative. So I was part of that ride, and I literally felt the kind of innovation that they built into the center. For example, they have created, of course, the center is based on essentially the design innovation process, to me, innovation process that we go through, understanding users, doing research and exploring ideas and coming out with government policies or programs. So if you look at some of the specific innovations that the Center for Government Innovations are doing, for example, they have certificate programs that were generated based on innovation thinking, design thinking process. There are lots of workshops and courses that each government employee has to go through. Each government employee has to go through a certification program to be aware and to be sort of prepared for the idea of innovation, to be reflected in anything that they do, their policy decisions or program decisions. That is amazing. Empowering each member of the government with this kind of design thinking, innovation thinking is amazing. That'll automatically bring in a culture of innovation to the government as a whole. I think the UAE government wants their government to be a model for other governments as well. So they are thriving towards a situation in which any innovation that they bring in for making the government better is replicable, repeatable in other governments as well. That's another amazing idea that as a nation it is doing. So these are very specific examples, as you asked me, Manas.
Great, great. So when we talk about nations, it that's a pretty big thing. So for me, actually, it starts from the home. It starts from the family. It starts with the society. So the kind of approach the society takes, the kind of approach the society brings into culture, then the state like state increase the practice, then the nation actually they keep the same practice. So what is the approach one should follow to integrate design and design thinking process for a greater impact in our society? If you can put little light on that.
Yeah, yeah. The strengths that we have as design innovators is absolutely essential for the growth of society. For example, humanizing our world, right? That is one of the strengths that design innovation brings. So how can we help any society-based programs or innovations with the idea of humanizing it, right? For example, many of the policies and decisions that let's say, administration offices in cities, like the mayor's office, make for the residents of the people, many a times have been traditionally top-down driven, right? Policies are created and it is pushed on to the members of the society or the residents. But it's not a very good model to succeed. Right? There ought to be bottom-up initiative that is happening at a society level that ought to drive what the programs and initiatives and the policies of the society is. That's where design can bring in a lot of value because we start with human beings, residents, and residents of the city. If the society is in a city, so understanding residents and people and their needs and their aspiration, their pain points, is a starting point for design, right? So that's where design can play a major role in bringing about innovation for the society. And not only that, another role that we can play to bring about change in the society is looking at behaviors, right? Human beings, we behave in certain ways, and innovations are supporting those behaviors. And many times, our behaviors are not really rational. So that's amazing, right? That all of us don't behave in a purely, absolutely rational way. There's a lot of irrational behavior that we engage in. Is it possible to understand that? For example, we know that eating sugar is bad for the health, but we still eat sugar, right?
We still eat it.
Irrational behavior, right? So lots of things that happen to people, how they behave. So we need to understand, we need to be sensitive about those kinds of behaviors. So, for example, biases. For example, we act
Biases,
based
yes.
on biases, right? So I'm biased with my own background, outlook, and family life, and then my actions and decisions are very biased. So can we
So,
understand?
don't you think these biases are based on the kind of learning we had in our previous life or in our journey? The
Yeah,
kind, like if I let we say in design that empathy has to be there, the designers need to learn empathy and all. So if the parents and the society teaches empathy and bring true design thinking to the young kids, so society will be better. What you
yeah, yeah,
opinion in this?
yeah, absolutely. You're right on
So
target, man.
shall we keep it mandatory?
Yeah, it has to be mandatory. Not mandatory means it has to be conscious to the people who are studying, to the people who are teaching, right? And the university, if you take the university context, it has to be a conscious effort to be open to those kinds of new behaviors, whether you are teaching a course or whether the students are learning, right? Whether they are doing research on understanding people's behaviors. So the consciousness is what is important. Mandatory, has a little bit of problem to me, because the moment you say mandatory, it sounds top down, right?
Top down, yes.
Top down. You create this regulation and you follow it, right? So it need not be that. It can be the same effect can be achieved without a top down. That's why I said consciousness of everyone is required to make that happen. But you're right on target. You need to be aware of all those behavioral patterns.
So like initially when we started our design journey, design thinking was a kind of a process and kind of a knowledge creation tool. But as the time flies, then now the design thinking tool become a skill. So you name the kind of departments or kind of faculty or kind of areas, design thinking plays the major role. So now it is become a skill for everybody. So what you say in this?
Yeah, you're right. It has become a skill for everything. It has been, I am concerned about that. I'm concerned about the idea that design is becoming a skill, or I would rephrase it, design is oversimplified, and oversimplified by taking out all the complexities out and then train in such a way that it comes down to developing designs rapidly as a skillful person would do. There is a danger in that. I'm concerned about that because, say, for example, more recently there's been a lot of effort on one-day workshops or 3-day workshops on design thinking, right? Especially perpetuated by some of the bigger design consulting firms.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm concerned about that. The 1-day, 3-day workshops are positioned as a way to make you a designer, right? It doesn't happen. You cannot.
It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in real life. Right? One day, how can you learn from a workshop and be an effective designer? That's what I meant by oversimplification of the design process, which is a very complex process. By throwing away all the complexities and oversimplifying down to a level, even to a skillful level, that can lose the purpose and the value overall. That's my concern. But having said that, being able to deal with design at a very high level as adding a lot of value to the world, respecting design that way, and developing skills for that is absolutely welcome. In order to do that, the skill level will have to come from various directions. You may not, as one individual, you may not be able to do that, right? You have to collaborate. You have to have you have to develop skills to collaborate with other people, other experts, to bring about that.
And most of the time, this design thinking workshop doesn't cover this.
Right.
Collaboration.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's where I come from. The design has to be practiced as something much more valuable, and having so many different drivers and influencing factors. And you as an individual, as a team, or as an institution, will have to work towards that.
Thank you. So now my questions will be little directed towards the young generation, the student community. So because most of the applicants most of the attendees are students, and a few of are my direct students from UPES. So can you relate some incidents where the students can become design expert and can learn through engagement activities? May it be short term, may it be little duration based learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in the Institute of Design at Chicago, we have the master's program, graduate program. We don't have the undergraduate program. But the students who come there have at least about 3-4 years of experience in the real world. So they're very mature thinkers, right? Those kinds of students. I'm taking the illustration of those kinds of students, very mature thinkers who's got some experience, level experience, and they work on design challenges. And some of them without design background. About 60% of our students are without design background. That is amazing. That we value that a lot, because when teams work on design challenges, the multiple backgrounds of the students add a lot of value to the discussions, or the brainstorming, and the conversation that you will have about the design challenge. So back to the question about, can students be leaders or experts in design? Yeah, absolutely. In order to do that, there are something that students will have to consciously do. First of all, they have to reframe their perspective about design. Design is no longer about form giving and making things better looking, right? Design is much larger. Design is humanizing the technology, humanizing the world. In order to understand human beings, really have to go deeper into the minds of people and how they work, their biases, and all kinds of things that we talked about. That's a big challenge as well. So students have realized that to take on those challenges, and moreover, any design challenge that students approach has to be dealt with as a system, not one thing. You're not solving one thing. You're not designing one product. There's a whole system around it that has an impact on that one thing. So how do you understand that system? So you can use a lot of methodologies to understand that. And the other thing that students need to do to become an expert is have a disciplined method, disciplined process. This is very important. In my whole career, that's what I have been attached to, a disciplined process. Design is not just about coming out with a bright idea and saying, Eureka, I have an idea, I can change the world.
Correct.
It's no longer there, right?
It's no longer the same.
Yeah, no longer the work like that. It's a teamwork, and multiple perspectives will have to come together. Design, the humanized perspective of design, the technology perspective, the business perspective, the market perspective, financial, viability perspective. All these will have to come together cohesively, so that in order to become a design expert, design student will have to be aware of this, and then bring about or gain expertise in many of these fields. You need not be an expert in technology, but at least you should have the fundamental glossary of terms to talk with a technologist when you're working on a project, right? So if you develop those kinds of integrated thinking needed for innovation, and develop some fundamental skills to do that, then obviously the design student can become an expert. And in our school, that's what I'm really proud about our students. They're pretty good at that. They can deal with ambiguity, they can deal with multiple disciplines, they can deal with discussions in the boardroom with the business folks. They're equipped to think that way. So that's where the expertise go.
Okay, so actually, my next questions is from my students, because they said that when you're interacting with Professor Vijay, can you please ask him how to be more creative? This might be seeming very silly, but how to be more creative, to have more strategic approach towards design as a student point of view.
Yeah, from a student point of view,
Yeah, and
creativity.
it covers the international students also. Like approach might be a little different in different geographical locations.
Right. Yeah. Creativity is just one part of design. Design also require a lot of other skills and competencies. a disciplined way of doing research and understanding behaviors. That's not about creativity. That is about a disciplined process in which you can really understand people and their behaviors, right? And the other thing is, of course, implementation. The other side of creativity is you might have the brightest idea, but the biggest challenge is implementing those ideas in the real world. The real challenges of planning and manufacturing, or strategically positioning your roadmap and things like that. Those require, beyond creativity, that requires a whole lot of other logical thinking patterns. So to me, for a design student to practice creativity, they have to go beyond just creativity, coming out with better solutions. Right. They have to go to the entire plethora or the spectrum of activities that they need to do to be creative. So that's where the discipline method or the process is so very crucial for design students to gain competence on. Brainstorming is just brainstorming and creating ideas and solutions. A concept is one part of that, but to be competent in doing research, finding a lot of information from research and asking the question, what do I deal with all the information? To be able to analyze and seeing patterns in those research results, and then changing those patterns into some kind of a basis for creating solutions, and then creating a whole lot of solutions, and then packaging them in a way that it can be implemented in the real world. So that's the process that they have to be competent on. So that can.
So you said the process. So yes. You are in the industry since last around 40 plus years, and the design process remains the same from day one till today. So through your experience in working consultancy, you are also doing government projects abroad. So do you recommend any design process amendments if at all it is needed?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Design process may seem like a standard process that you can apply. That perspective is because you're thinking about design in a linear way, right? You start with research and analysis and synthesis and prototyping and realization. So think of a linear way, right? That's what I've been practicing. But the amendments should go against that. One of the amendments that I value is that it is not a linear process in real life, right? You should be prepared to be flexible, to get away from that linearity. For example, when you're brainstorming an idea and a concept comes that's a fantastic, cool idea. But how do I know whether it'll work? How do I know whether people will want that idea? So you may have to go back to the research mode and do a lot of research to validate whether that idea will work or not. So you're breaking the linearity by going from the ideation stage to a research state. Right.
So it's kind of a looping?
Yeah, looping is the second one. Non-linearity is one thing. You make it non-linear, jump from one place to the other. Looping is the other one. Make it iterative, right? The process has to be iterative. You go through one iteration and you might come out with an initial rough idea that you might think might work. You prototype it and test it again. Do some more research, right? Modify it, then bring a better solution. That's it. Many iterations of prototyping will lead you to some kind of a pilot idea. Now I'm ready to pilot this idea in the real world, in the real marketplace. Then you pilot it and study it again, iterate again before you launch it. So this non-linear processes and iterative process, these two are we have to be very conscious about that and practice that in the real world when you talk about process. Those are the amendments, key amendments that I think are necessary. And beyond that, the new trends, emerging trends that are happening in the real world. So take for example, AI, artificial intelligence, right? That's a huge emerging trend that we have to pay attention to. So now the question is, how do I incorporate the approach that is needed for artificial intelligence-based innovations? How do I incorporate that in my design process? Those are the second level of amendment that we have to make, being on the cutting edge of emerging trends and responding to those emerging trends in the process.
Thank you. And this question's actually the next one I just received before starting this session, and it was a sincere request from one of my students in foundation. And she is very curious to know that, sir, in design, actually, we should be like jack of all trade and master of few, may not be one or none, but few. But now this AI has come and it is trying to replace us because the new buzz in the industry is AI and metaverse AI. So is it a threat or a blessing for design?
To me, yeah, not a threat at all. It is a blessing if we can use it to augment and complement our work. We cannot take it on face value as a blessing that, oh, let's go with the technology of AI and let's see whether, how it can work for us. No. The is a great blessing in terms of an emerging trend. But can I use it to augment anything that I do in the future, innovation? Can I use it to complement? Because human beings are there, right? They're not going to go away. Right? Machine learning, artificial intelligence, those are all great complementary tools that human beings can use. We talked about bias, for example, right? How do I understand biases? How do machines understand bias? It's a tall order for the machines to do that, right? Or feelings, the sadness and the depression that I feel. Can AI do that? Of course, there's some limitation of AI do that because we are human beings, that coexist with machines, right? So that's why I say that AI is not a threat. It's not going to take over the world, but as long as we human beings are there as thinking, feeling people, but we can use it as a tool to complement our work. Already happening. Chat GPT is a simple AI tool. A lot of us have started using it as a tool to enhance our work, right?
Sometimes it is considered to be very unethical when you start using AI, but it's a part of life now.
Right. Yeah.
As Google, you said, is the part of life.
It is, and plus it is a mystery. We still don't know where the world is going with the application of AI. So it is we have to go along with the flow and be conscious about the human beings in the middle of all that, right?
True. So now I have some personal question to you from your experience. And before that, I request all the participants, if you have any questions, please drop it in your chat box. So I'll try keeping all the questions in this session. And sir, in your experience and through your journey, you must have seen the ups and downs and the use of design, sometimes misuse of design. And so how you define design? Means what is your definition of design? And how has design as a profession evolved in last 2 decades?
Yes. Yes, I've gone through that. I'm fortunate to have gone through the whole ride as a design change specifically from 1990 onwards. If I look at 1990, nobody was talking about design thinking. Nobody was using the word ethnography or empathy. And at that time, design was all about, make things pretty. And the marketing department will give you some brief about make this product pretty so that I can sell it. So that is the perspective that design had in early 1990s. So look at the world where we are today. So I am fortunate enough to be part of that journey. As I was practicing in 1990 with Dublin Group, it's a strategy planning firm, world-leading strategy planning firm. 1990, when they set it up, we were a small group of people. We were driven by the idea that design can be much bigger than that, bigger than form giving. So we created a team at that time. And what are the composition of the team at Dublin Group at that time? Designers like me. They were business folks who work on marketing strategies. They were technologists and engineers who can work on innovative technologies. They were financial experts who could work on the viability of the ideas. There were mathematicians. We had a PhD in mathematics who could really look at the numbers and give you really deep statistical analysis. And there was a philosopher in the team. What is a philosopher doing in design team? He was looking at the ethics and the mission and the vision the world should have about design, and like a philosophical look at the world, those kinds of things. So, and anthropologists and social scientists in the team who were really experts in understanding people's behaviors, especially cognitive scientists. So this was the composition of the team at that time, 1990, when Dublin was formed. I was lucky to be part of that. So it is wonderful, wonderful magic happening in that team when we took on client projects, working with, we worked with major clients like IBM and Apple and Texas Instruments and all these important companies, helping them think about design in a different way, in a very, very meaningful way. So what was the meaningful way? We brought in the idea of the human-centeredness. In order to do design, you have to really do user research or people research. And once you do research, it's a great starting point for any innovation, for any company to implement. It cannot fail, right? That's one attribute that we brought in. The second attribute that we brought in was systemic thinking. Design is not that's the one thing. You have to look at the whole system. The third attribute we brought in was it has to be strategically important. It has to be fused or merged with the strategy planning of the corporation or the organization. Otherwise, design can fall back. It should be part of a strategic plan, any design innovation that you bring in, that one. And more recently, and that has happened over many 10, 12 years. And more recently, from early 2000 or mid 2000, there's a transformation that I personally experienced, which has brought in the idea of social innovations. We talked about society and doing good for society, right? It is designers' responsibility to do greater good. I use the word do greater good, right? You're doing wonderful work in creating technology innovations and other innovations, but that's not enough. Like you have to take the next step. You have to take one more step of ensuring that anything that you produce is for the greater good. It'll add value to the society. It'll add value to our environment. It will not pollute our air, right? So those kinds of greater good goals became a key focus for designers, and it is highly growing these days. A lot of my students are seeking jobs in that area or social innovation for non-profit organizations. That's a wonderful happening. That's one. And then over the years, it also became much more evident that we talked about governments, right? Much more evident that governments need to be more innovative, right? So designers can play a big role in making government much more innovative so that they can serve better. So government innovations is another huge, I think it is the most growing area where designers are paying a lot of attention to. So these
sorry, Manas,
yes.
There are lots of questions in chat box, so maybe you.
Yes, I'm just trying to get this one now.
Yeah.
So I'm just following the chat box, and I got a very nice question from Mr. Swam.
Just one minute, Manas. I just want to touch upon one point, and then I
Yes,
will.
sir.
Vijay, the thing is that there is a tremendous shift in design education pedagogy which has happened in recent time. Our time, meaning that internet was not there, and we are talking about humanizing technology, but somewhere we see that technology is taking over, and what technology can provide, students are coming out and others also coming out because technology provides, you are bringing out the solutions. So somewhere where the empathy becomes very important, that you put yourself in somebody's shoes, understand it. The internet is supplying all the information, and you see that most of the time life is very simple because you can get all the information on your computer. You're not going out in the field, interacting in the field. This is the shift in design education is happening all over the country. Now, obviously, we would like to seek your guidance for the students, that what is the danger if suppose we are not getting into society, because you have this talked to 2 3 times about society, about
Yes,
humanizing.
sir.
And when you are totally focused with technology, of course, technology is an enabler, technology is a tool, but ignoring mingling with the society and environment and depending on totally the internet information, um, where it is going to lead and how the future designer will shape. So I think it will be useful for students to know about it, that internet pros and cons, how designers need to learn in design institute in a holistic manner, and then afterwards you can please. Sorry, Manas, I thought that
No, no,
internet
it's
and
okay,
this.
sir. It's a nice insight. Actually, this is in line with our discussion.
Yes,
And I
yes,
hope Professor Vijay also will be agreeing with your input. So here
yes.
I am getting a very nice query from Mr. Soham. What ethical and societal responsibility should designers prioritize in their roles as professional and individual starting today? Let me repeat.
Um,
What ethical and societal responsibilities should designers prioritize?
yeah. Obviously, as good human beings, not let's talk about good human beings, not just designers, right? We should be
Yeah.
responsible ethically. We should be responsible ethically to be conscious of all the issues and all the problems that are happening in the society. And designers more so to be sensitive enough to perceive what the challenges are there in the society and take steps, whether you're working, whether you have a full-time job or not. Even in your job, you can take steps in creating some initiatives to make the society better, make the environment better. For example, I'm just taking an example of a project that my students have done, just to illustrate the point, um, to be bold enough to take those ethical, responsible steps for making the society better. There is an example of that. It may be an unfamiliar example for students in India, particularly talking about that because you can learn a lot from this. This is about reducing shooting violence in Chicago. Chicago, where I live, as you know, there are lots of pockets, a few pockets in the city where there is prevalence of violence. Violence means shooting, right? Gang members, drug trafficking, and shooting. So, as a designer, as a common person, it has to be worrisome, right? As a designer, it has to be more worrisome for you. How do I respond to that? Even if I'm doing beautiful apps development for Google, I still have to worry about those kinds of societal issues, right? So can I take some steps to address that or influence the Google folks to address that? That is something that we can do. So in the student project that we did was exactly about that. There was a nonprofit organization in Chicago working to reduce shooting violence in risky neighborhoods. So they approached our school oh, you folks are designers, you're very creative, you have wonderful ideas. Can you help us with some ideas that will help us reduce violence with shooting in those neighborhoods? We said we thought about it. Is it a design brief? We don't normally do projects like that in design, right? But we jumped at that opportunity, the boldness of our student team, and we jumped on that opportunity and said, "Oh, we will work with you. We'll figure out some ideas to reduce violence in those neighborhoods." We did a fantastic job working with this nonprofit organization, taking on that challenge. It is challenging because, for example, think about user research or on-the-field observational research. How do I go to the streets and ask a gang member, why do you shoot? They might turn around and shoot you, right? So it's a difficult challenge even to do research, right? How do I deal with that? So we have to come out with bright ideas. The designers, we are creative people, right? So our student team came out with a fantastic idea of asking the nonprofit organization working in that neighborhood to announce a Saturday evening barbecue party for the entire community.
Okay.
So, they announced, oh, this Saturday, come everyone, we're going to have a barbecue party on our backyard. So that is an opportunity for us to go, for the entire community to come in a celebratory mode in which they are celebrating with. And that's a partying time, right? Everyone is in a light mode. And that time, our student team and our team mingled with some of the risky fellows in the community, some drug traffickers, some of the guys who carry guns, and we could mingle them easily to open a conversation. We found out amazing kinds of insights through those conversations. So what I'm saying is that designers have to be prepared as an ethical, responsible person to be bold and to go beyond your regular processes to deal with those kinds of challenges. So that's just one example. Of course, just to give you a sense of just one insight that we learned from that conversation with a 22-year-old boy who was carrying a gun, who was there in the party. And we, in the joyful mode, we asked him, why do you engage in this kind of, risky behaviors? Aren't you afraid? So that young boy told us, no, I'm not afraid. I'm having fun. Having fun. So we need to understand what does he mean by having fun? Then then we asked, what do you mean having fun? Then he said, I'm having fun because I'm 22 now. I know by 28 I'll be dead.
Oh.
Amazing insight, right? He has decided that there is no life for him after 28. But because he sees the surrounding and his friends getting killed and the negative, the atmosphere in that community, and he sees everything negatively. There is no future for his community. He decided there's no life for him after 28. This is an amazing revelation. We could not think about that ourselves, and our students, sort of flabbergasted by that. Now, as a designer, we have to address it, right?
Yes.
How do you deal with it? How do you change the mindset? That's where the behavioral change ideas come in. We cannot put in more police in the community, and that doesn't really work. Incarceration punishment approach does not really work. You have to create very clever solutions to change the behavioral patterns and the thinking patterns of these young people in the community, right? So one of the solutions that we created was what is called Good News Engine. Our students came out with an idea of creating a platform for celebrating good news that's happening in this community. Lots of good news happening. One fellow got into Harvard University. That's a good news. Nobody talked about it. Bad news spreads very easily. Good news doesn't spread very easily. So the Good News Engine is to celebrate every single good thing happening in that community, put it out on poster boards and bulletin boards, and celebrate it and put it all over the world, all over the community, so that everyone ultimately we'll have a sense, oh, our community is not all that bad. There are some good things happening. This 22-year-old boy might be ready to change his perspective. There is life after 28. So there's just one example of how designers need to take that extra step of doing greater good by being bold and taking on challenges of research and then coming out with clever solutions that can work in the for the betterment of the society.
So just thinking about this 22 years kid, there is a good questions from Mr. Adit. I'm sure he's a student. So his question is, please give recommendations to approach in building a portfolio for a master's design targeting in IIT Chicago.
Portfolio, okay. Recommendation for the portfolio, yeah. I think the biggest recommendation that I would give for your portfolio is to think of your work that you have done as something that you think will change the world, right? Think of it that way, right? Just a portfolio element is just, oh, I designed this product. Look at this form. Put a beautiful photograph. That is a typical way of creating a portfolio, right? This is a product design I've done, a beautiful photograph, and explain some of the functions and features improvements. That's a very typical way of doing it. But think of your portfolio as a story that you're going to tell a prospective employer or anyone who is going to hire you, a story that is about your life and what you have produced in your life as a design project might have an impact, is meaningful, might have an impact on the real world. It can change the world. So think of a story like that. Even if you designed a better product, describe it in a way that, oh, this product will improve people's life this way, right? And describe it that way. That can be very powerful. That's just one advice that I could give to reframe the format of the portfolio that more than just a collection of projects that you have done to a story that you're going to tell using those examples as a way to change the world. So can you do that? That's a challenge.
I hope he can do that. So I have some questions from architect students and professors because there are a lot of architecture community here. So I have a question from Mutsanna Datta, who is a associate professor, and also from Nisari. Similar thing. So let me rephrase those questions.
Right.
How can academia fosters a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship among architectural students? And this generally the architect Nishari claims that architecture schools teach design process majorly theoretical but no practical, and there is no inputs in how to set up your own firm. So can you please put little light on how design and entrepreneurship can go together?
Right. Okay. That's a great question. That's a huge challenge as well, because entrepreneurial effort itself is a huge challenge, right? To be successful as an entrepreneur, it's a huge mountain to climb, because you have to take on the world with your idea, with the prospect of being successful. If you really look at some of the statistics, it is depressing about entrepreneurial.
Depressing.
Yeah, 96% of the innovation that come out in the real world through entrepreneurship is failure. 96%, right? It's a failure, right? So that why is that happening? We should be concerned about only 4% succeed in the real world. So how can you make that 4% succeed to 5% or 6%? Then you have done something really great, right? So that's where I think design comes in. Design, in my opinion, can raise that 4% to 5% or 6%. How? Because we start with human beings, right? Design has to start with human beings and understand their needs and aspirations and pain points and hopes and assumptions and biases. If I really understand all that through deep method, it's not narrowly done, deep method that we can borrow from social science and cognitive science and use those deep insights. Just like the insight that 22-year-old boy told us that there's no life after 28. We had so similarly deal with all those insights that human beings told you. And then that cannot fail. Any idea that is generated based on those insights cannot fail, right? You can ensure that it will be successful. Ultimately, any innovation that you're going to create is going to be used by a person. And if you start with people and their needs, it cannot fail. That's just one attribute. Of course, you have to think about as an entrepreneur. You might have a wonderful idea of a product or a thing that you want to put out in the marketplace. You have solved implementability, materials, and costing, and all those things you have solved. You're so passionate about it that you solved it as a great product that you can sell. But that's not enough. You have to go beyond that. It's not creating a better product or a wonderful thing that you can sell. It's about doing greater good, or it's about the other forces that'll play in, the policies and the regulations and the governments and the manufacturing frameworks and who's going to distribute and the financial planning and the funding and what if we run out of funds and what is plan B, plan C, road mapping, all kinds of things that goes beyond just that product, right? So that is something that entrepreneurs will have to be conscious about. That's where they have to collaborate with design thinkers or design folks who have some expertise on integrating those various kinds of drivers as a holistic solution for the future. That's my definition of design. Design has to be that's a holistic solution for the future by bringing in all those forces. So the collaboration with designer and entrepreneur need to happen in that space as well to make it successful.
Great. Actually, most of the time, the design curriculum miss out this perspective of the commercializing factors or the entrepreneurship factor. But I think nowadays the university actually put little bit of courses, may not be the credit courses, few audit courses, and major of them have some incubators. So
Yes.
who takes care of these things? The patenting agencies. So these are some of the things the student has to do on his own. So there are very few entrepreneurs come out of design schools, rather because a lot of jobs are available, so people are happy taking up jobs. But it's okay. First, they have to learn with some other money, then they invest their own money. That would be a good idea. So one last questions I would like to take from Mr. Shirish, which is I'm sure he's a student. Like when the student is in the design school, the facilitator or academician or like person like us, we tell them, okay, few things are design knowledge, few things are design skills. So you need to grab those things to perform better in the market. So he says, how much weightage should we give on learning design software, CAD softwares, like Rhino, Grasshoppers, or SolidWorks, like that?
In my opinion, skills can come along the way, but the thinking is the most important. So in terms of the percentage of weightage that I will give in the design program, I will put 80% on the thinking process, right? 80%, the right kind of idea, right kind of insight, right kind of framework that you need to use to make the world better. So that once your thinking is right, in order to make your design solution work, there's so many skills, infinite number of skills that you can learn. You cannot learn all of them, but you only learn the one that impacts your solution, right? So it's a selective choice that you have to make to develop skills based on your basic stream of thought for the future, right? Once you have a very good stream of thought that this is the direction that the design idea should proceed. If it requires Rhino, you go and learn Rhino. If it requires some others, ChatGPT, go and learn ChatGPT. So skills in my opinion, that's what our students are doing. We don't have skill-based courses except for students that we select without design background. We gave them 6 months of early training on some of the basic skills of model making, prototyping, some fundamental skills, model making, prototyping, doing research and things like that. That we leave it at that. The rest of the skills the students pick up while they are doing their project based on a thinking stream that they're doing in the classroom. So the rest of, they're all project-based, they're all team-based projects, right? So when they are working on those team-based projects, there's a lot of discussion. In order to do this project, we need to do this. Once you decide we need to do this, what kind of skill is needed? So you go and learn those skills outside the projects, right? That works out pretty well. So it need not be all the skills need not be part of a regulated curriculum. There's a lot of skills that you can learn on your own, depending upon what is needed for the project. But what is important is doing a project in a meaningful way with a lot of teamwork and thinking about what could be the future.
Great, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your information, whatever you got from the experience you had. And I'm sure the participants are leaving with some of the good thoughts and memories. And I request the participants, can we switch on our videos so that at least we can see our faces? If possible, can you please switch on the videos?
It's a good idea. Oh.
We just know you till your username. So can you please switch on your videos if it is possible?
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a beautiful group of young minds,
Yes.
I think if all switch on their video, then we can take a short
Photograph
of this.
Okay,
Screenshot.
please screenshot.
So I would request everybody to kindly switch on their videos. I think it's a nice idea, Professor Manas, that I think that will be a good way of knowing people.
Well, I can see few of my students also here.
Oh, I see Dr. Guru Prasad also. Good to see you.
Yeah, hi sir, Guru Prasad sir.
Thanks, Vijay. It was very insightful.
Okay. Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you, Manas, for
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well.
So thank you once again, Professor Vijay, for being a part of this CII Design Talk series. And as everybody mentioned, from Professor Vyasa to Professor Manas, that I'm sure that the participants would have taken quite a lot of key takeaways with themselves. And this was genuinely one of the very interactive and an insightful session, where a lot of questions we had and a lot of know how to do and how to survive in an industry and what is the need from the industry and from the academia. Both of the topics were covered. So thank you once again to Professor Vijay sir and also to Professor Manas to be a part of this. And thank you to everyone who has joined virtually to attend this session. I would also request each and everyone, if they have any questions which they would like to post it, please do send us an email. And you can also post it here. We will respond to you and we will definitely get back to you with that. Thank you so much. Would look forward to the future sessions in the similar fashion. Thank you so much.
I must say thanks especially to API ED, because they're sitting in an auditorium and they're the biggest witness of this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. Thank you once again. Would look forward to meeting in the next time.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, sir.
Bye. Thank you very much.